What I'm about to tell you now in this recording is not something new, but it needs to be said. Some victories are not worth it unless you know full well that this victory may require you to bear with some bad stuff that you actually want to deal with. So, let me give an example of it. Let's say that you have an argument with your spouse. Just a simple example. And you know that you have all the facts, so you force your spouse to acknowledge that you're right. Whether it's about washing the dishes or whether it's about, whether they should get pets or not, it doesn't matter what the argument's about. So the spouse concedes. Over time, sexual intimacy decreases. And then you're still married, there's no divorce, but there's no real intimacy, and there's quite a coldness in the household. And the children are also suffering from this coldness in the marriage. So now the children have to deal with a toxic climate that they haven't chosen for. And this will have consequences when they reach their teenage years. So when they're in their teenage years and you want to exercise authority over them, they can uh, throw it to your face that you're not that reliable yourself because you've been acting fake all the time, that you're not resolving things properly. And then what are you going to do then? So that argument that you wanted to win years ago with your spouse, it had long-term implications that you did not consider. So you've won. You got the victory. But are you willing to accept your victory? Are you willing to take responsibility for the consequences of your victory? Now, this is a very easy example, but let's extend it further. The following example I've used in another video already, but I'm going to use it anyway right now also. Let's say you have a woman who gets involved with a guy. Let's call this woman Jane, and that other guy we call Frank. Okay? So Frank and Jane are dating, but eventually Jane figures out that Frank is a scam artist, and Jane lost all her savings money that she saved. Now, Jane worked at a financial consultancy, a financial consultant office at the time. Now, let's say it's 4 years later, and this Frank is in the courthouse. He has stolen over $2 million together from all his victims over the past 8 years, and he's about to face trial and to go to jail. Now, Jane is about to testify and about to partake in the trial. But then, one of her friends, well, friends, she's just an acquaintance, one of her acquaintances, Julia, tells her, Jane, are you sure you want to proceed with your fight against Frank? Jane said, yeah, of course. He has robbed me. He's humiliated me. He needs to pay. And finally, there's justice. He's going to jail. But then Julia tells her, Jane, 4 years ago, where did you work? Jane tells her at a consultancy office for finances. Okay, Jane, were you married back then? Jane said, no. I was single and I got involved with him. Okay, Jane. Julia continues, Jane, are you married now? Jane says, yes, I'm happy with Mark. And then Julia says, okay, so you've continued your career in finances. You're married with Mark now. You have good relationships with your family-in-law. Things are going good at work. Jane, I would give up your fight against this Frank. And Jane tells her, Julia, We're not really that close friends. I appreciate your concern, but this goes a bit too far. And then Julia tells her, look, Jane, I know this may sound rude, but you really need to cut this out. You really need to stop doing this. Because if you win and this Frank goes to prison, you will lose far more than Frank does. Remember, he's a con artist. He is also a scammer. He has scammed and conned many people. He already has a bad reputation. And even before he was caught, he had nothing going for him anyway. It's because he had nothing going for him that he was a con artist. So when he ends up in jail, he's not losing anything. He may go to jail for maybe 10 or 15 years and afterwards he's out and he hasn't really lost much. But you have a family, you have a career, you have family-in-law, you have friends, you have a reputation that you need to keep intact as someone involved in finances. And besides that, the company you work for is also affected by your reputation. Because if you get a bad reputation and you work at a company, that company will also suffer harm. They will lose clients. And by losing clients, they will lose income. And when they lose income, the company may go bankrupt. And other people that work there, your colleagues, may lose their jobs. And when they lose their jobs, they can't pay their rent or their mortgage. So it's not just about you, Jane. You're connected to so many people. So whatever happens to you also affected many people, even people you don't know. Those co-workers of yours who have their mortgages to pay or their rent to pay, they have families to feed. If you get a bad reputation and that company that you work at goes down because of that bad reputation, they will all face difficulties in their households. So, Jane, you are what you're doing is the decisions you make will affect many people, even people you don't know, and will affect even generations afterwards. Jane, let this fight go. Don't get involved. I know Frank is wrong. I know he deserves to be in jail, but don't go into this fight because you will win likely, but that winning will not be worth it. Your marriage may suffer because Mark's going to realize that he didn't marry a self-confident woman, but he married a woman with self-esteem issues that she was even willing to trust a con artist. And remember, your savings account was plundered, but because of you, this Frank also had access to the financial accounts of many other people. So when that comes to the light, hey, you'll lose your job, the company will face reputation damage, and if other people lose their jobs because of the reputation damage of the company that fired you, those people will now be bitter against you. So now you'll have that on you. You'll likely divorce, or even if you remain married, your marriage has suffered. Your relationships with your in-laws will be different. Jane, look at the bigger picture. Let this thing go. Now, this is an extended version of this parallel I've used in another video also. But look at in this situation. In this situation, this Julia is telling the truth. Jane is only focused on the gratification or the high of winning. She's not thinking about what that winning will bring with it. So that winning in the long run is not winning at all. And that is what I'm telling you, believer. Satan is a lost cause. He's a bitter old creep awaiting the lake of fire. The fallen angels are lost causes also. They're pathetic, homeless losers. That's what they are. The Nephilim are a breed that should have never existed, so they will join their angelic ancestors in the lake of fire also. So, Satan is a lost cause, and he loves company in its misery. So the paranormal wants, let me say, the paranormal is a collection of miserable spirit entities, and the paranormal wants company because misery loves company. So Satan wants your company in his misery. So Satan wants to, I would say, he wants to ruin you so that you partake in his misery. That's what Satan wants. So when Satan comes with his attacks, is to trick you into his misery. Too many believers fall for the trap of going into extreme warfare against Satan. I can understand that. Warfare prayers are good. There's nothing wrong with warfare prayer. There's nothing wrong with a militant attitude against the powers of darkness. There's nothing wrong with those two things. But it should be put in context. You should know that the enemy just wants you in his inevitable misery. So the enemy has nothing going for him. The enemy has nothing to look forward to. You do. So realize this: anytime Satan comes with his deceptions and his attacks, is to drag you way to hell with him. Satan has nothing valuable to offer. You do. So know your value as a believer. Too often, we win useless battles thinking we gained a big victory. Look, not every battle is meant to be fought. Okay? Let me give an example. If you are in the bus and everyone is just doing their thing and you have this individual staring at you and with an angry face, then you know this individual has issues going on in his life and he is just desperately looking for an outlet. So he's just staring at you in hope that you respond to it, because once you respond to it, he will see that um, as a provocation, then he'll use it as an excuse to attack. He just wants to unload. So what are you going to do? Are you going to ask him, what are you looking at, man? Are you going to show your annoyance by him staring at you? No. You just see him staring at you, and you may say hi, or you may just pretend like you're stoned, or as if you're staring in front of you also. And when he asks, and when he begins to curse and all of that, when he begins to use harsh words, you say, "Oh, take it easy, man. I'm just spacing out." You de-escalate and you move on. He is about to fight. Why? Because he has issues he doesn't want to face, but the issues have overtaken him, so now he wants to unload. So his fighting is really his finding reality, and now he wants to unload the tension. Are you going to fight him? No, because by fighting him, you will partake in his misery, and that misery will affect you. It will affect your job, it will affect your family, it will affect your reputation, it will affect your health. No. So that battle is not meant to be fought. It's meant to be avoided, and it's meant to be shut down even before the battle begins. So, haven't you noticed that often when a company is accused of some corruption or some criminal activity, and journalists approach the employees or the some other staff member or even the CEO of the corporation, that they often say no comments or they just don't respond? And let me tell you, that's a very good strategy. Because once you're accused of something, let's say you have, for example, British Patrol that's accused of child trafficking, for example, and this becomes a hype in the media, and then you have journalists approaching the CEO of British Patrol asking a question about it. If the CEO would say, "This is ridiculous, of course we're not involved in child trafficking," he has offended himself, he has denied the claim. But now that he has denied the claim, he's now into the fight of defending the reputation of the company. But if he just does not respond to it, then the only thing the accusers have is their accusation. And now the accusers have to prove their accusation. But if the accusers don't have any proof, but only an accusation, and the accused goes into defense, now they have the response of the accused as a fuel to, to empower their accusation. And now the public will forget about the proof. It will all be about the reaction of the accused. And once the accused has been placed in a negative daylight and the accused fights back, people remember the fighting back of the accused. And people may now blame the accused for fighting back because of all the drama that comes from them fighting back. So forget about the accusation of whatever the accusation was. The accusation doesn't matter anymore. People may have forgotten about the accusation altogether, but now they're upset with the accused for standing up for himself or standing up for herself. So not every fight is meant to be won. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Am I saying that you have to get along with exploitation, accusation, and all types of violence against you? No, absolutely not. What you should do is you should be flexible enough to bypass all attacks and all traps of the enemy. That's why Christ said, be wise as a serpent. A serpent is flexible. That's how we ought to be. We ought to be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually flexible. The only one we're not flexible with is the Most High. We are firm in our faith in the Most High, but we're flexible and practical with everything and everyone else. So that is why lawyers and solicitors will tell their clients, don't talk to the police. That's why in every police series, on whether it's on Netflix or whether it's a CSI series produced by Hollywood, in every of those series, when a character is accused of a crime and they're arrested, the lawyer comes and says, don't speak anymore. And the lawyer says, we're not going to talk any further. Why is that? Because lawyers and solicitors, they understand human psychology, namely the psychology of worldly people. They understand sociology. They are not sociologists, they're not psychologists, but they understand the basics of worldly psychology and of sociology. They know that the masses are not interested in the truth anyway. The masses are interested in them being left alone. So if something bad is going on, the masses first don't want to admit it's happening. Secondly, they don't want to get involved. Thirdly, they don't want to take responsibility to deal with the issue. And fourthly, they just want it to be over as soon as possible. That's how the masses are. So if you're accused of something and you defend yourself, you are tricked now into a fight, and this fight can endure for long. And sooner or later, it will cost you, because even if the accusers are proven to be wrong and people are fed up with the accusers, you are associated with the accusers because you were the victim. And the memory of you being victimized is powerful enough to remind the population that there are things that they need to deal with in the community. And this is something the population doesn't want. They don't want to be remembered that there are things they need to deal with. So you as the victim, you're not wrong, you're not guilty, but people may perceive you as guilty because the fact alone you've been victimized shows that they need to deal with stuff and they don't want to. So they begin to blame you. And when you keep reminding the population that you were the one that was victimized, they'll perceive you as a perpetrator. The same happened to Job. Job was the victim. Obviously, Satan was able to do his thing, and Satan did his thing, and Satan had many people that were willing to work with him. So thousands of people enabled harm against Job. And Job was the obvious victim of the community and of demonic forces. It was of demonic powers and of the community. And Job kept on proclaiming his innocence, which is true. He did not force those people to rob into all of that. Now, Job was operating in fear, which was wrong. Job was not aware of it, but that fear was something he was tricked in by his own children who were disobedient to the Most High. So Job was tricked into a bad condition, and later Satan used his bad condition against him, but the Most High only allowed Satan to use his bad condition to reveal how bad people were against Job. So before Satan made his moves on Job's life, Job was already in a bad position. Job was being exploited and used by the community. So Job was the victim anyway. But because Job was the obvious victim, it revealed the defectiveness of the community, and nobody wanted to deal with it. So even the so-called friends of Job that came to comfort him began to blame him. Why? Because it was easier to blame Job, who was victimized severely, than to face the fact, okay, we have hundreds of burglars, hundreds of backbiters in the community. Oh dear, what are we going to do with this? So then Job was perceived as the perpetrator. And in this lifetime, you need to understand the following. You fighting back may make you appear guilty. Even when it's proven that you're innocent, you fighting back may give the vibe, may give the impression as if you're guilty. And the impression of you being guilty is enough for people to publicly condemn you and scapegoat you. Yes, victims tend to be blamed when they fight back. It happens. The world wants They want good and quiet victims. Good and quiet victims. That's what the world wants. People that are victimized, and despite how bad they're treated, they always smile and make everyone at ease. That's what the world wants. That's what the world promotes. And that's what pagan Christianity is promoting also. The world does not promote victims standing for themselves and putting things in place. They don't support that. They don't. They don't want to be confronted with that. So that's why Christ did not call us to defend ourselves. Christ called us to walk by faith and to shut down evil around us in our faith walk. And when retaliation comes, God Himself will act as our defense. That is what we ought to do as believers. So, not every victory is worth it. And before I end this video, I'm going to talk about another situation here that's similar to this. This whole thing of this Brexit thing that happens with Britain. Yet this guy called Nigel Farage said, that's the EU, needs us, Britain, more than we need them. Let's check this same signal for a moment. You have this large island called Great Britain, with some tiny islands around it, and you have Ireland next to it, and Great Britain administers Northern Ireland. So you have a big island, and you have this massive continent, Europe. So the massive continent has mountain ranges, it has beaches, it has more rivers, it has more bays, it has bigger lakes. So geographically speaking, mainland Europe has more to offer than Britain in the physical sense. So when it comes to agriculture, there's more farmland, there's more space for building bridges, for building more towns. So physically speaking, the continent has more to offer than that island Britain. And here's another thing. You have more inhabitants on the big mainland than you have in Britain. 60 million in Britain against 440 million on the mainland. So when it comes to demographics and labor and economic activity, the mainland has more to offer. So from every point of view, what Nigel Farage said was complete delusion. But people did not call him out on it. People did not just pick up the map of the world and said, hold on, Nigel, we're this island over here. This is a big continent. How can that big continent has less to offer than we do? Come on. So people did not challenge it. Why? Because people were upset about how bad things were in Britain, so they had now had a scapegoat, the European Union, and they went off for it. And a lot of people became religiously devoted against the EU, want to bring back British glory as if Britain was still an empire. What happened? Those um, those reprobate, obsessed people, they got what they wanted. Brexit happened. What now? What about the consequences that their victory brought? They've won. They got what they wanted, but now they need to do what they wanted. Now they need to come with solutions for the economy. Now they need to come with programs for the people that are losing EU funds because they're not part of the union anymore. So now there are a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, and in no way, shape, or form is Britain better off without EU in this post World War II world. Why? Because before the Second World War, Britain was an empire, the empire that governed the world. Now, they're not that anymore. Britain over time became a gateway, an economic bridge for the European economy. That's what they've become. That was the relevancy in the world. That's why Britain still mattered. But now they've given up that relevancy. They were co-deciders of the biggest economic market in the world. They were co-deciders. One of the main countries of this economic zone is the biggest one in the world. And they've left it. So now they can't co-decide, but they have to do everything that others want from them. So Britain lost its economic as well as political relevance in the world by this whole Brexit thing. So what is the solution now? Now they are in humiliation. And that humiliation cannot be reversed. What are they going to do now? The Brexiteers need to accept that they've won. But is the victory worth it? That's the thing. They won't accept their victory because now they have to realize that what they were fighting for was not really that honorable to begin with. And now they're still blaming the EU. Now they are trying to rewrite history. Now they're going into toxic denial. And you know what? The rest of the world has enough. While they were fighting for Brexit, other issues that had to be dealt with in Britain were not dealt with. So now there are a lot of more issues in Britain that have piled up. The rest of the world wanted to move on. They've moved on. And Britain lost its reputation because as a society they've revealed that they're narcissistic and they want their way, even if it means that you have to remain with harm. This those Brexiteers seriously expected all the Europeans to go against their own best interests so that Britain is at ease. So everything for Britain, no matter what it costs you. And it and they seriously thought that the rest of the world would get along with this. After this has been exposed about them, after their collective narcissism was exposed, nobody trusts them anymore. Many companies have left Britain. So in future negotiations with the world, nobody's going to really trust them anymore. Because now they have a bad reputation that's likely not to be forgotten. They've become the laughingstock of the world, being self-destructive while demanding praise from the rest of the world for doing so. I'm only using this example of Brexit to show to you that not every victory is worth it. So, whatever you're going through, remain focused on Christ, look at the bigger picture, and let the Holy Spirit guide your steps. Don't rely on your own understanding, or else you might end up with trophies that carry nothing but ruin in them. Be at peace.